The University of Virginia, Jefferson's unreligious dream. At the edge of Charlottesville, Virginia, stands a place unlike any other in America, a university designed not just to educate minds, but to shape a civilization. This is the University of Virginia. And at its heart lies a radical idea. Not merely a campus, not merely a collection of classrooms, but an academical village, a living, breathing vision of learning, community, and freedom. A place where students and professors would live side by side, where knowledge would not be locked away in a cathedral of tradition, and where, in the mind of Thomas Jefferson, education would be liberated from the control of church and empire. This was Jefferson's dream, a public university for a republic. And it was, in every sense, revolutionary. Thomas Jefferson had already helped shape a nation. He drafted the Declaration of Independence, served as president, and imagined America as a bold experiment in self-government. But in his later years, Jefferson turned his attention to another kind of revolution, the revolution of the mind. He believed that democracy could not survive without an educated citizenry. Not an elite few, not only the wealthy, but ordinary people capable of reason, judgment, and civic responsibility. To Jefferson, education was not a privilege. It was the foundation of liberty. And so he imagined a university unlike the rigid, religious institutions of Europe and colonial America. He wanted a place free from sectarian control. A place where students could pursue truth without being told in advance what truth must be. In Jefferson's words and actions, the University of Virginia became a challenge to the old order. Construction began in the early 19th century, and Jefferson personally shaped nearly every detail. He designed the campus as the Academical Village, a term that reveals everything about his vision. This was not a fortress of learning separated from life. It was a village of scholarship. At the center stood the Rotunda, inspired by the Roman Pantheon, symbolizing the authority of knowledge itself. Stretching outward were the pavilions, each one housing a professor and a classroom above a private garden. Between them, the student rooms formed a long, elegant line along the lawn. The message was unmistakable. Learning would be communal. Teachers and students would inhabit the same intellectual landscape. Architecture itself would teach order, balance, reason, and openness. Jefferson embedded these ideals into stone and brick. But Jefferson's most radical idea was not architectural. It was philosophical. He envisioned a public university that was, in his own words, unreligious. That did not mean anti-spiritual in a simplistic sense. It meant something far more daring for his time. The university would not be governed by any church, creed, or denomination. In an era when higher education was often tied to religious instruction, Jefferson insisted that the pursuit of knowledge must remain independent. Students would study law, medicine, philosophy, science, and the classics, but they would not be forced into a single theological framework. Truth, Jefferson believed, should be discovered through inquiry, not imposed by authority. That idea was explosive. A university without religious control. A public institution devoted to free thought and thinking. For Jefferson, this was not a threat to morality, it was the very condition of intellectual honesty. The University of Virginia opened in 1825, and from the beginning it stood apart. It was one of the first universities in the United States to be independent of a church. It was also one of the first to be conceived as a public institution from the ground up, not as a private academy for the privileged, but as a civic project for the new republic. Jefferson saw education as a safeguard against tyranny. If citizens could think critically, question dogma, and understand the world for themselves, then democracy had a chance. If not, the republic would be vulnerable to ignorance, manipulation, and decay. In that sense, the University of Virginia was never just about books. It was about freedom. 2 centuries later, Jefferson's vision still resonates. The Academical Village remains one of the most beautiful and intellectually symbolic campuses in the world. Its design is not merely admired, it is studied, preserved, and recognized as a masterpiece of human thought. In 1987, the University of Virginia's Academical Village was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site, honored not only for its architecture, but for the ideas it embodies. It stands as a monument to a daring proposition: that a university can be a place of beauty, reason, and civic purpose all at once. That education should be public. That knowledge should be free. And that the life of the mind should not belong to any single creed. Thomas Jefferson imagined a university that would help build a nation. What he created was more than a campus. He created a statement, a declaration in brick and stone that learning belongs to the people, that inquiry must remain open, and that the future of a republic depends on the freedom to think. At the University of Virginia, Jefferson's radical dream still lives. Not in silence, not in isolation, but in the daily life of a place where history, architecture, and ideas continue to meet. And that is the enduring power of the Academical Village. A village of learning, a monument to liberty, a university born from one of the most unreligious and revolutionary visions in American history. Subscribe to our channel for more educative videos. Thank you.